Welcome to the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. This is episode 28, Top 30 Countdown Part 3. My name is Tyler.
Hello, this is Kevin.
This is Tyson.
In this episode, we are finally going to discuss our top 10 games of all time.
The best of the best.
The last couple episodes, we did our top 21 through 30 and top 11 through 20. And now we're going to count down from 10 all the way down to 1.
It's the final countdown.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Apparently less enthusiasm from you two than me about the top 10. I get it.
I'm just not as musically as talented as you are.
Your voice is so beautiful.
It is.
We just cannot compete.
Even when it's in guitar form.
My favorite form of voice.
Your guitar voice is amazing.
Thank you.
No, but really, you can't go wrong with any of these games.
No.
Top 10 games of all time. I mean, we're going to have a little bit of crossover.
A little bit more than we have on the past couple episodes.
Because, I mean, it's almost impossible not to. We play games a lot with each other. But
And we play a lot of the games that we like together.
Right.
Together.
But there's still some unique ones on there that are going to be fun to talk about.
There is. Jumping back to the last two episodes, I did think it was surprising how little crossover we had.
Yeah, we mentioned that in the last episode.
We did.
And it continues to kind of surprise me to see that, hey, we have a diversity of opinions, but we all like generally the same stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. We have a crossover, a same number crossover in the top 10. Listen to find out which one that is.
So, in normal episodes, we talk about what we've been playing lately. We're going to skip right over that this episode, but I do want to mention I have been loving the games that we are playing with people on BGA and Yukata from our Discord. That has been super engaging. We'll throw up a game. Hey, anybody want to play this? And then, within a few minutes, we've got Feast for Odin going, or
all of our favorite games, right? One of the things that I like most about that, and maybe dislike, is that you get the games filled really fast, but conversely, if you're not paying attention and you want in on that game, it just got filled up really fast.
Yeah.
So
one in particular.
Yeah. That just happened, right? Yeah.
Well, and there was one a few weeks ago or a month ago, or maybe it was even a couple months ago, but I saw that My City was on there, and that's a legacy game, and it's on my shelf of shame, but I was like, oh, cool, we could play it on BGA. And I mentioned it, and then I was busy at work, and somebody else created the game. The slots got filled, and I totally got shaft and did not get into that game.
I was one of the fortunate ones who made it in that game. We're on episode 14, and I'm enjoying it. It's a very interesting game. So it's great to be able to explore, especially with people who are like willing to let you kind of be bad at a game. They're like, we're not playing too competitively. Yeah. I love that about the community, is that everybody is willing to, hey, this is a learning game for you. Here, let me give you some tips. Here, let me give you some advice. Or if you have questions, just let me know. I like that.
And it's not only BGA. I love the fact that we can get BGA games going, but it's just the community, seeing what other people are buying, what they're interested in, the discussions that we have just about board games are just a ton of fun on the Discord. So BGA and all things board game related are just, I love. So it's great.
I mean, and then you even have stuff that's not board game related. We've talked about the different shows we're watching, from Andor to Rings of Power to Stranger Things to everything else. It's
your one-stop shop for nerdy things.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a good spot.
If you're interested in playing games with us, talking about games with us, join our Discord. The link's in our show notes. Come play some games with us. Let's talk about games.
Hey, Tyler, I got a question for you.
What's that?
What's a pirate's favorite thing about board games?
Discard. I don't know.
Discarding the cards.
Whatever, Tyson.
What is happening? Tyson with jokes?
I don't know. I'm going to have to up my pun game.
I know.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about our top 10 games of all time.
Let's do it. How about I start?
That would follow the current pattern.
Let's do it then.
All right.
So my number 10 game I have talked about a lot on this podcast, and that is Dominion. Were you shaking your head, Tyler?
I was shaking. No, not at you. I was
Oh man, I knew I'd get
was
crap for this one. I totally knew it.
It was internal. I was thinking about something else. Sorry.
Okay. So Dominion, if you don't know about Dominion, it was designed by Donald X. Vaccarino, published by Rio Grande Games. It is the original deck builder. And it is a very streamlined deck builder. There's a lot of games that have come after it that do a lot of different things. There's boards now with deck builders. There's all kinds of different stuff that you do. But this was the original that kind of kicked all of that off. So to play Dominion, you start off with a certain hand of cards. You have 7 coppers and 3 estates. There are 10 different kingdom cards that are placed in the middle of the table. And these kingdom cards can be purchased and placed into your discard pile to later be used when your draw pile has run out. There are money cards. There's victory point cards, and that's how you win the game, is trying to get these victory point cards. So you draw 5 cards. You play any actions that you have. You can play 1 action and possibly more depending on the cards. You buy something. You discard your hand. You draw 5 more cards, and you play until somebody gets to until the highest victory point pile, or the provinces is what they're called, are gone. Whoever has most points after all of that is the winner. So I love this game. I love the variety of this game. It has, I think, 800,000 expansions at this point, but it has a ton, including one that's coming out, I think this month, is another expansion.
Oh my gosh, they're still doing them?
They're still doing expansions, which is crazy. They probably should have stopped 3 or 4 expansions ago, but I will never complain about more cards to play in Dominion. Play it with my family all the time. It plays great over FaceTime, which we do with Matt, my brother-in-law, quite a bit. So, wonderful game. I'll be playing this one for years and years to come. And it's my number 10, Dominion.
They've really got a menagerie or cornucopia of expansions.
Yes, they do.
And
they do.
Can you say the designer's name again? Because it just rolls off your tongue.
Donald
like
X. Vaccarino.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, he's designed a few other games. That's by far his most popular game. But he designed Kingdom Builder. That was his follow up. I really enjoy Kingdom Builder as well. I believe that won the Spiel des Jahres. I
think so. Yeah,
I think it did. Yeah, and he has some other games, but by far most popular one is Dominion. So that's my number 10.
My number 10 is a game that is published by one of our favorite publishers, I think. It's one that I have not played nearly as much as I'd like, but the experiences I've had with this game have been so wonderful that it easily fits into my top 10. The game I'm talking about is published by Mindclash Games, designed by Richard Amon, Victor Peter, and it is called Trickerion, Legends of Illusion.
Illusion, Michael.
So Trickerion is a game about illusions. You are stage illusionists trying to create your own tricks, build them, advertise them, and perform them. So essentially what you're doing in this game is there is some resource management, worker placement, simultaneous action selection type of stuff going on. And there's a lot of different various components. This board is beautiful. The artwork on it is great. It reminds me a lot of the movie The Prestige by Christopher Nolan, or directed by Christopher Nolan, which is one of my favorite films ever. I love the whole aesthetic that creates, and this captures it. It's in the late 19th century, and it gives you this kind of vibe of magicians and illusionists have more to it than just maybe a sleight of hand. Like maybe there is something magical going on here. But the gameplay itself, what's going on is each round, what you're going to do is you're going to be sending your workers out into the market, trying to gather materials so that you can perform or set up your performance of what you're going to be doing. There are a lot of different things. It's got some mechanics that if you're familiar with other Mindclash games will feel familiar to you. Like the die rolling that is in Anachrony is in Trickerion as well. And then there's some very familiar worker placement type of things going on. And I really enjoy everything that's going on with this game. I won't go into depth on all of this, but this is a game that I wish got to the table more often. It's not one that I get played enough. The biggest downside, I think, to this game is the length of play, and teaching it to new players can be a difficult feat, which makes it harder, I think, for it to come to the table as often. But it's one that anytime it's offered, I want to be playing this game.
I need to play this game. It's still on my shelf of shame. I got the collector's edition from a AMC theater parking lot, early COVID handoff.
Everybody was masked up. It was, yeah.
Kevin was there picking up Last Will.
Yep, got Last Will. I've played my copy I picked up. You haven't got Trickerion played though, huh?
I'm lucky to have it sorted and put it in the box. Like that thing that took me 4 or 5 hours to put.
Well, that's what Anachrony was when I got the Kickstarter. That's crazy, the amount of content in those things.
Well, I spent a long time trying to find my copy because for a long time there, this game was not easily acquired. You couldn't buy it. It's easier now. They've reprinted it since, but I couldn't find it. And so I kept looking at like Facebook groups, waiting for some to come through. And I finally saw one and I bought it. And the very next week, the same seller who sold me my copy sold another copy of Trickerion, but it was the collector's edition. And mine was just the base version. And I felt like a little bit like gypped, and I didn't get that experience of, like, I wanted that collector's edition. So I bought the big box. I've started adding stuff to it because I love this game.
Nice. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Mineclass should make those available during their Kickstarters, I think. Do what Eagle Griffin does, right?
Yeah, they're pretty good about getting their games back in print.
They do a good job most of the time getting them back in print. So that's my number 10, Trickerion, Legends of Illusion.
So my number 10 game is designed by Gavin Brown, Matt Tolman, and Martin Wallace. It is the number 2 ranked overall game on BGG, Brass Birmingham. This came out in 2018, published by Roxley Games. If this game didn't exist, Brass Lancashire would be in my number 10 spot. They're both amazing games. This one just changes up a few things a little bit, and it is awesome. You are playing as competing entrepreneurs during the Industrial Revolution in England. Brass is a complex economic game where you are trying to score the most points by building a strong network of different buildings, canals, and railways. You need to plan as best as you can so that your network has access to resources and markets. I'm not going to do a deep dive into the rules, but basically you're adding buildings to the map along with coal and iron mines, and you're trying to take advantage of demands in the market. You gain victory points and increase your income by doing various things. However, taking loans, which you will most likely have to do, will lower your income. I did want to talk briefly about a couple things I love. The first one is I absolutely love how the action selection is done. You have 8 cards in your hand. They are both industry cards and location cards, and you use 2 of those cards per turn to do 2 actions. What card you play as your action determines where you can build in cities and what you can do for that action. The hand management aspect is so much fun. You replenish cards at the end of your turn until the draw pile is exhausted. Then you choose between your final cards those last few turns each era before your hand runs out. Just the having to plan ahead and think ahead about which actions you want to do. I love that part of this game and how those cards are used to do the different actions. The second thing that I absolutely love about this game, everything is about timing in this game. So turn order is super important. I love how turn order is decided. Whoever spent the least amount of money in the previous round, so when each player did their 2 actions, whoever spent the least amount of money to do that goes first, and so on. I just love how that is done because timing is so important in this game. This one is a brain burner, trying to make sure you have the right resources available to you, building in the right places.
Well, that's a big thing in this game. I've only played it once, and I played it with you, Tyler. But the thing I do remember is the resources that are available on that track on the board with the different things that are there. And with turn order, you have to know how do I time my turn so that I can ensure that I get the resources I need to be able to do what I need, but also can I afford to wait a little bit to be able to do that thing and also accomplish other things, which was a very interesting kind of push-pull dynamic, especially with that turn order.
Well, and there's an ore and iron market, and there's some opportune times to build those buildings, because if there are empty spaces in those markets, they'll immediately fill up. You get paid for them, and then if you used up all of the ore or iron on that tile that you just put out, you get to flip it and gain victory points and income from it. So there's lots of cool things going on in this game. There's markets on the edge of the board that are different each game, and sometimes you're selling different things. It's all about how you link up your network of cities to those outside markets. Really, really tight game, great economic game. We need to play this more.
Yeah, it's on my shelf of shame. I own it. I haven't played it. Sounds awesome.
And with those iron clays from Roxley,
yeah.
I mean, it's so awesome. It's such a good experience. So I love the art. I love everything about this game. My description of this game did not do it justice, but this game is incredible. My number 10, Brass Birmingham.
So my number 9, we've talked about this one before. This is designed by Juma Al-Juju, artist Clemens Franz, and it's published by Karma Games. So this one is Clans of Caledonia. This game is amazing. We've played this, I don't know how many times. We played it quite a few times on the table when we got it, and it's on BGA, so we just played the heck out of it on BGA. So it's a mid to heavy economic game set in 19th century Scotland. You are a player who represents a historic clan with a unique ability, and you compete to produce, to trade, export agricultural goods, and you're, of course, producing whiskey as well. So the way the game works is you have a board in front of you. You have a certain number of actions. You take actions until you run out of money, which is really cool because not everybody's going to end the round at the same time. If you have more money, if you've been better with your money, or if you have more money throughout the game, you get to take more actions. So you will be placing cheese on the board, or cheese factories and distilleries, and you'll be putting sheep and cows and other things out on this board. You're also going to be buying these things potentially from a market board. And that's one of the coolest things about the game is this market board, where the more you buy, or the more anybody buys, the price of that good, whether it's grain or cheese or whiskey, is going to become more expensive. As you sell, the price becomes less expensive. So there is a timing aspect to the game of when am I going to buy? I know somebody potentially wants to buy cheese, so maybe I want to buy cheese now before the price goes up, or the other way, you want to wait until it gets cheaper because you know somebody's going to be selling cheese or whatever the resource is. So there's that whole push and pull of when and timing of when you purchase things. There's end of round scoring. So after the end of every round, there's scoring that happens, and you're trying to set yourself up to get points at the end of each round. You play over 5 rounds, and whoever has the most points at the end of the round is going to win. You're selling contracts. That's a big part of the game, is you pick up contracts and you're trying to fulfill those contracts with the goods and the things that you have, and that's how you're getting most of the points. The end of the game, you get points for cotton. You get points for cucumbers, right? I don't know. It's sugarcane, I think, is what it actually
is.
Tobacco, something like that.
We always call it asparagus.
It doesn't really matter what it is. It's green, right?
Stickleck.
Yeah, and then you get points for straight points for hops. The other things you get points for can vary based on how popular they are and how many people have. It's just a blast to play. There are talks and rumors of a potential expansion coming as soon as this year, which I think it desperately needs at this point.
It does.
Because we've played so many times, but I can't wait for that to come out. It'll give it a little bit more, reason to get to the table once that comes out. So
Tyson, do you love this game?
Have you played this one?
What game is this again?
Clans of Caledonia.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
The one where I don't know what I'm doing. Most of the time.
You played on BGA. But
I've only played it on BGA, and I recently actually played it again, not with either of you.
Really?
I played it. I think it was Harame on our Discord invited me to play it, and I was like, well, yeah, if it's not with Tyler and Kevin, maybe I'll figure it out.
Oh, whatever. Did you figure it out?
I did not, and I got beat hard, but I did better, and I'm starting, I think, even more to understand it. And again, it's one I want to play on the table.
I love this game. I love the market, like you said, Kevin. It's so fun to interact with. It's a perfect example of supply and demand in a game. You know, looking for the opportunities, you get market bonuses. If you build next to other people's buildings, then you can buy whatever good is represented by that building for cheaper. Looking for those opportunities. They're
trying to squeeze out one more, money because that's what you need in order to fulfill a contract or to buy a good, money's really tight.
The last round of games of Clans of Caledonia, I'm just on the edge of my seat. Super exciting. The anticipation and the suspense, and they're intense, and I love that about this game. Similar to Terra Mystica and Gaia Project, I love that on your turn, you only get one action, but you have a ton of different possible actions that are available to you. And so the turns can be really, really quick, which I love how the flow of the game, it really does move pretty quickly, but you get one action, tons of actions available to you, whether you've got 4 coins and you're barely anything left and you just expand your shipping distance or whatever. Just trying to eke out every little advantage is just so much fun in this game. I love it.
Yeah, the area control is super interesting, trying to block off areas of the map where somebody wants to expand, or getting there first because somebody wants to get to the cheap spot and put a cow down or something like that. It's just super interesting, that initial placement of where you put your guys, where you think you want to expand to, where everybody else puts their people, and then turn order becomes super important, right? Yeah. Because you get that cheap spot or you block off that the corner to that bonus area, and force somebody hypothetically to go to the 4 spot instead of the 1 spot, which happened in the current game we're playing, I think, with somebody. So it's just an awesome game. It's
great.
Super well designed. So that's my number 9, Clans of Caledonia.
My number 9 game is a game that has recently joined its spot in the top 10 of my list. It's a game that I've only started playing within the last 3 months, and one that you, as listeners, if you've listened to any of our previous episodes, should be familiar with, because we reviewed this one in episode 22. It's Cthulhu Death May Die, which is designed by Rob Davio and Eric Lang and published by CMON Games. Now, I won't go into too much depth about this game, seeing as we did a full review of it in episode 22, but one of the things that I want to point out about this game is how it treats the Lovecraftian mythos slightly different than any other Lovecraft-style game, in that you are, as always, or typically, an investigator in the Lovecraft universe. But instead of trying to stop the coming of the elder gods, you are waiting in the wings for them to be summoned so that you can put a final end to them and stop them. So in Cthulhu Death May Die, as investigators, you are cooperatively working together to be able to take down the elder gods. This game has created more cinematic moments consistently in a multiplayer game than any other game that I've played of late, and that's why it's quickly risen to my top 10 list. And I am very excited because recently a new Kickstarter for this just ended for seasons 3 and 4, which I hopped in on. The Pledge Manager actually just recently came out as well, and I ended up adding more to my pledge.
You did. Did you get Riley Rising?
I did not get Riley Rising. I did get the unspeakable box, and I got another set of dice.
You get the frost dice?
I did.
Yeah,
I got the frost dice.
Yeah, they're awesome.
So I love this game, and I'm excited to play it more. I'm excited for when that comes in, but in the meantime, I'm excited for any times that we can play it with the content that already exists. This is a great game.
Yeah, I love, we've talked about it a lot already, but I love the fact that you feel like there is no way you're going to be able to survive, to win, to disrupt the ritual, and somehow you figure it out as a group. You barely squeak disrupting the ritual, and then you barely, sometimes you die miserably, but other times you just barely on the last die roll defeat the Elder One and you win and everybody's cheering. I mean, that happens so many times in this game. It's awesome.
And then when you lose, though, it's also hilarious. Because sometimes it is so lopsided and terrible, but it happens so fast and it's easy to reset and play again real quick, but it is hilarious how miserably bad you can lose sometimes.
It never feels bad. It's one of those like few games that it's almost as cool to lose as it is to win because you lose so epically, and it's like and it's another one of those cinematic moments. You can just see it in your mind. It's like, okay, we had no chance. You know?
I loved that we released our feature review of Death May Die, and then within a couple days, or like a day and a half later, Come On announced season 3 Kickstarter, and it was like, it was just perfect timing. It was so cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
We like to think here that we had something to do with that, but
we're just delusional.
I'm sure they had things all laid out even before that.
Well, you see, madness is a trait in Lovecraft, and
so it's seeping into our brains a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, for all of those reasons, that's exactly why this quickly shot up to my top 10 list. It's my number 9. It's Cthulhu Death May Die.
So my number 9 is a T-Series game. This is one of 2 T-Series games that made my top 30. This is Tekhenu, Obelisk of the Sun. This is designed by Daniela Tassini and David Turci, who recently became a father. Congratulations. I know this because he ran a Game Found with some promos, and I backed it to, get more content from his games. But this is probably the most complex T-Series game. This came out in 2020. And one thing that I like about this game and Teo, especially, is the use of dice. And in this game, there is a giant obelisk, and there are rings around it. And each pie, there's 6 pies around the ring, or 6 sections, represents a different god and a potential god action that you can do. But in this ring, in this circle around the obelisk, there are 3 rings, and depending on which way the obelisk is facing, and it rotates periodically every couple rounds of turns, the dice that are available to you based on their color change, which is really cool. So like the dark dice on a sunny day or in a sunny space at that moment, you can't use, and other ones are tainted, and then some of the other dice are pure dice that you can use the pure and tainted, but as you take dice to do an action or collect resources, you collect resources based on the color of the dice, or you can use the god action from the section that you took it from. Depending on what color they are, they're either pure or tainted, which is another interesting thing to keep track of, because at the end of the round, depending on how well you balanced your cumulative tainted dice values versus your pure, determines turn order and potentially getting some negative points. So there are 6 different actions that you can do. Place statues on the board. You build pillars in the temple. You can build buildings around the temple to gain victory points. You increase happiness and gain scribes that let you manipulate the dice values. You take various blessing, technology, and decree cards that increase your ability to do things and award victory points and give you bonuses and stuff. The things that I love about this game and why it's my number 9 is just the dice play. That is the central part of the game, whether you're taking a dice for resources or to choose a specific action. and how when the obelisk moves and changes the shading of the light, how that affects the dice, just the planning that goes into it. And then, just lots of interesting decisions and trying to figure out, there's tons of different ways to score points in this game. Generally, I've played this game with my son, Logan, and for the most part, he's crushed me. I don't know what it is, but like this game and Dune Imperium, he usually beats me pretty soundly. Such a great game. The dice selection and how the dice work is fascinating to me. I feel like there's so much more to explore.
Yeah, it's a good one. I played this one a few times. It's one that I own. I love that obelisk in the middle and how it shifts and the decisions that you have to make on the dice selection. Just awesome. It does suffer from if you have a big thing in the middle of the board that you can't see on the other side of it.
Yeah.
But that's not that big of a deal.
But it's not like a giant tree. So it's not too bad. But.
There's other games that are worse offenders, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But the decisions in it are great. It's one that I really want to get back to the table again. Yeah. And it just suffers from there's so many games to play.
Well, and I love, like Board and Dice does a great job with their production quality.
They do.
And
they're awesome.
I love the art style in this one. They do a really good job.
And all those games that use dice, they use them in unique ways, right?
Yep.
And every game that in that T series that uses dice that I've played, it's just interesting and it's fun and it's fresh and it's new, and that's no exception in this one as well. It's just a ton of fun.
And if my copy of Toledo ever ships, we'll get that played.
I've got that one.
Yeah, you picked it up locally, you jerk.
Yeah, I was at the game shop and picked it up. Super excited to see it.
I'm excited to play your copy.
Yeah, so trying to get that one played in the next few days if we can. But another one in the T-Series that uses dice. So I'm excited to play that one too.
Nice. So that's my number 9 Tekhenu, Obelisk of the Sun.
So my number 8 is another game we've talked about a lot on this podcast. It's designed by Elwyn and Min and published by Czech Games Edition. And this is Lost Ruins of Arnak. Lost Ruins of Arnak it combines deck building and worker placement. You are on an uninhabited island in the seas. You're explorers. You're going to be exploring this island. You're going to be encountering guardians and defeating those guardians. You're going to be exploring a temple. There's this temple track that you have to advance.
Go up on.
You have to advance on it. Yeah. You got to go up on that track. Similar to other games like Dune Imperium that have tracks as well.
Yes.
That if you neglect those tracks, you're not going to do very good either. But anyway, you go. Listen to our other podcast to see what Tyler feels about Lost Ruins of Arnak. So you're going to be placing your workers on the board. You have 2 workers, and you're going to be placing your workers out on the board. You're going to be exploring. You have compasses. There's resources. There's money. There's rubies and all these different resources that you get to advance on the track, to defeat guardians, to purchase cards from the card row to build your deck. And the whole goal is you're trying to obviously get the most amount of points. And you get points in a bunch of different ways. You get points for going up on that research track. A unique thing about the research track is you have to advance your magnifying glass first, and then you can advance your book behind it. So you're trying to, do I want to go shoot up to the top as fast as I can with my magnifying glass because there's bonuses for doing that? Or do I want to, kind of move both of those at the same time because you get different bonuses on this track based on what you're moving. It's a tight game. The resources are tight. There's things to figure out in the game. How am I going to defeat this guardian when it seems like I can't? You get assistants that help you do that. A lot of ways to score, a lot of paths to victory. It's just a super fun game and one that I've played a ton of on BGA. We played it on the table as well, but because it's on BGA, we've got to really dig deep and explore this one.
It's a game I think that does really well at making sure that you maximize your actions, right? Like the whole thing that you have to do is, you mentioned, Kevin, already that you've got 2 workers. That doesn't mean you have 2 actions. And the amount of actions you do have in a round are kind of up to you. And it's up to you to figure out how can I get the most actions and the most out of my actions throughout this round? And I love that. When do I put those workers out? And when do I wait to put those workers out? Because there's a timing element here where if I don't put it out on this space, that means that somebody else is likely going to take that space before me. But if I do wait, then I have opportunity to open up, or somebody else may give me a guardian to defeat, or somebody else may give me a means to do different things. So I love that there is a fair amount of interaction in this game that's not like it's not like too competitive, but it's enough to give me to change up my strategy from turn to turn based off of how other people are playing, which I love, that maximizing actions and reading the board state. I think it does a really good job at that.
I mean, like any good deck builder, the culling is a lot of fun too. And this is a game you always have a much smaller deck than in other games. But it's really fun to try and cull that deck as much as possible, make it as powerful as possible. You're constantly potentially picking up fear cards that you're trying to get rid of, but even eventually you start getting rid of coins and stuff. And like you said, trying to maximize your efficiency with your actions. It's a great game. It was number 22 on Tyson's list. It did not make my top 30. I've been recently playing with random people on BGA lately, and I continue to play it and try and have fun with it.
I don't know how to respond to that.
That started off really strong.
Yeah.
Like it sounded like you were so in favor, and then it seemed to trickle off.
It's obviously still...
I gave it another chance, but it still sucks. But I'm glad it's your number 8.
Hey, but it's still good enough that, like, if I really didn't care about playing this game, I wouldn't play it. I'm still giving it a shot. I'm still
there's enough
trying to find
explore.
Right, what it is about this game that takes it to the next level. Because for me, I don't have that experience when I play it. So I'm trying.
I don't know why. Just move on to something you like.
But it's easy to play and it's quick to play. So I don't mind playing with other people.
It's kind of
like Tyson.
It's getting worse.
He didn't want to play clans with us. He didn't invite us to his clans game.
I guess that's true. All right. Anyway, that's my number 8.
And it's a great game.
Lost Ruins of Arnak. If you like good games, check it out.
Go watch Indiana Jones and then go play Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Right.
Speaking of going and diving into temples and plundering and all this stuff that Indiana Jones and Lost Ruins can do, my number 8 is a game of exploration and diving into the depths of a large, vast world. It is Gloomhaven. My number 8 is probably, is this still number 1 on the BGG
it is.
Top 100? Yeah. For good reason. Like, this game is designed by Isaac Childress. It's published by Cephalofair Games. And obviously people love this game. And I am also one of those. It doesn't make my number 1 game like it does for maybe a lot of other people. But for me, this is a fantastic game. One of my favorite gaming experiences has been with this game. I got to play this game with a friend of mine who he and I would set time aside to just play it regularly, and we went through nearly the entire campaign. We ended up, I think, playing through almost the whole campaign, but at the end, we ended up going down a path that we accidentally misread what we were doing, so we played the final scenario a little bit before we should have. So we completed the campaign, but we also probably skipped out on a couple of scenarios in between because we misread how it worked. But it was still a fantastic experience. This is probably my most played game ever, on the table anyway. I've played this game so many times. And one of the things that I really like about this game is that, per its own description, it is a self-described Euro-inspired tactical combat game. It's playing as if it were less dependent on randomness and more dependent upon player choices. And really what I like about it is this combat system uses 2 cards that you are playing out of your hands. And these cards, each of the cards have an initiative number on them. And then it has a top and a bottom action, and you can choose between those. And you don't have to make that decision when you play it, whether or not you're going to play the top one or the bottom one, but when it comes to your initiative turn, you're going to play it. So everybody has this initiative, and you can't really explain or tell your co-players who you're playing with what initiative you have, but you can trying to figure out, okay, where can I play in initiative order? What needs to happen first, and how does that work? And then you see what the enemies are doing as well. And so there's this really cool decision-making process, I think, going on in this game. And then on top of that, you have this vast world where you're exploring multiple scenarios. You're growing your own characters. You're unlocking things. The amount of discovery in this game is fantastic. And that's one of the things I love most about games is discovery. I love discovering new things and exploring and figuring out new features to the game. And this game, because you have so many boxes that are kind of hidden boxes in the box, you get to explore and get new content all the time. We talked about in the last episode, Kevin, you mentioned Pandemic Legacy Season 1 and how it has that discovery element of you're opening new content all the time. Gloomhaven has that as well. And so when I finished this game, we hadn't unlocked everything, but my buddy who I was playing with was moving across the country, and I wasn't going to be able to finish playing through it. And I figured, you know what? I've had such a good experience with him. One of the things that we wanted to do was see everything, but we didn't get to do that before he had to move. And so we decided together that, hey, we're just going to open everything that we haven't seen and kind of explore the content of this game. And that I have such great memories of like doing that. I don't like to do that normally, but because it was like our game and we got to explore the content, it was a really great experience. So I love this game, and I think that it has a lot to offer, and there's a reason why it's number one on the top BGG list.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever play this one, just because it's a big campaign game and there's a lot of content to get through it. It's a commitment, right?
Oh yeah,
to get through the whole thing. It looks amazing, it looks awesome, but I just don't know if I'd ever actually get around to playing the whole thing. But it does sound like a great experience, right?
So we have it, and we played through 10 or 11 scenarios as a family. I think when we do eventually go back to it, we'll probably start back up with Jaws of the Lion, play through all those, and then maybe get back to Gloomhaven. But it's an incredible experience. My one complaint with it is when you fail a mission and then having to replay the same mission or scenario or whatever, like that can be really frustrating.
Especially when you do it, and I've failed a mission like 4 times.
Oh, wow.
And at a certain point, you're like, well, we should just fudge this and do it. We didn't do it. We ended up beating it, and that was fine. But like, it does have that. And then the other big downside to me about it is kind of what you alluded to there, Tyler. There is a tremendous amount of setup and teardown time that it's an endeavor to go about getting this game played. If you have a vault, that's great. I didn't have a vault when I first started playing this game, and so I always had to set it up and tear it down. And I sometimes would take it to my buddy's place, and that was an experience too because it's huge.
Right. Well, even while you're playing, there's a lot of upkeep during this game, tracking damage on monsters, and there are some apps that help out with that are done really well. But I can understand why it's in the top 10. It's not in my top 10 or top 30, but it is a great gaming experience.
Yeah. So that's my number 8, Gloomhaven.
All right. So I just talked about my number 9 game was Tekhenu, an Egyptian game. I'm going to go right back to Egypt with another game. It's Ankh, Gods of Egypt. This is Dudes on the Map game from Come On, and it finishes out the trilogy of Blood Rage and Rising Sun. We discussed this game in length multiple times. In our inaugural episode number 1, we did a feature review on it. The sculptures are amazing.
Yeah, sculpts are awesome. Really good.
But basically, and there's different scenarios you can play. You have 4 streamlined actions available to you. You can do up to 2 actions. And when you do one of the 4 actions, there's a track for each one and a marker advances. Well, when it gets to the end, it advances the event track. And sometimes that gives rewards, and sometimes it triggers conflict where you then battle out each region one at a time. And this is the meat and potatoes part of the game. Really, the stuff leading up to it, you're just trying to set yourself up and set your game up so that you can get as many points out of the battles as possible. You're moving your guys around, you're upgrading your Ankh powers, you're getting followers, you're adding guys to the map. So, I mean, the battle is triggered, you tally up your strength, so you kind of have an idea of what everybody's strength is in each given region, specifically the one that you're about to battle out. And you also see if there's any guardians in the region and if anybody has special abilities that they get to use. Everybody has the same set of cards that you can choose from to play one card per battle. You're just trying to do anything you can to gain any points out of each battle. Everybody reveals their card at the same time. You determine who wins the battle, how the points are divvied up. This game is just awesome. I love the miniatures. I went all in. The production quality is amazing. The decisions that happen are just so much fun. Deciding what card to play and how to eke out points. You're trying to get up to the top of the track, the points track, to the very top first. And whoever does that, it immediately ends. There's a merge mechanic, which has been talked about at length on this podcast. I love it. I think it's really cool. I think 3 players is the optimal player count for this game. It's really fun when it comes down to you versus 2 people where they've merged their god powers. They've, assimilated with each other and they share actions, but they also have the ability to discuss and mislead, and it adds a little more to those battles and the conflicts. Is this in your top 30, Kevin?
No, this didn't make my top 30. Still, I love the game. It's fallen a little bit.
That's another surprise.
It's fallen a little bit for me. It's actually on the trade pile at the moment. And that's for a few reasons. Space for one, because this game is massive. We have a copy in the group. Tyler mentioned he went all in. I went all in as well. Tyler's not getting rid of his copy. So anytime we want to play, we can play his. The merge mechanic kind of left a bad taste in my mouth the last time. I'd never been at the bottom of the list, bottom of the, in last place when the merge happened, and it just didn't work out well. There were things I could have done probably to make that work out better in that game, but that I could see the criticism there. That does not mean it's a bad game at all in my mind at all. I think it's fun. Tyson and I had experiences where we merged and played Tyler, and it was just right down to the end. And it was so cool and so
wit
fun.
For wit.
Yeah.
I mean, just
we were
equally contributing as well. That was part of it,
which was really cool. But I think there is the chance that you get kind of burned on that merge. But this is the game where you do things and you feel kind of clever for doing them. You figure things out. You maybe outwit your opponent by doing something that they're not expecting, which is always a cool feeling. Yeah. And I love games that do that.
Yeah. I love when they expect you to play a specific card and they think for sure that's what you're playing, and then you play something else and they're like, whoa. Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, I see. That makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I get it.
Yeah. So
it's almost like a chess kind of a mindset where if I do this and like trying to outmaneuver your opponent, it works really well. The other spot that I think that does really well, that I don't know if it gets talked about as much because the emphasis really is on the combat, but I think there is this kind of outmaneuvering element to it in the action selection because of the way the action selection works. If I take this action right now, it means that somebody else is going to be able to maximize their potential because they can go to the end of the track and then get these extra bonuses for whatever they're doing. But if I take this lesser one, it may set me up to be able to get that later, but what do I need more? So
or it may set up someone where they can only take one action on their turn. And yeah, there is some interesting decisions there with the actions, but I loved how streamlined that part is and how quick it is. I mean, really, you can play this game pretty fast if you sped up the battle phase a little bit.
Yeah, the real problem is particularly when you merge and you do have the good experience like Kevin was just talking about, like what we had, and you are actively collaborating, trying to figure out what the best situation is. Those turns with the merged gods can take longer, and in combat or otherwise, because they get to play back to back, and so it can be a little bit of a long time, especially if you are waiting for that to happen.
It's a great game. That's my number 8, Ankh, Gods of Egypt, designed by Eric Lang.
All right, my number 7. I'm going to read a little bit in Board Game Geek about to set this one up a little bit. All right. So travel back in time to the greatest city in Mesoamerica. Witness the glory and the twilight of the powerful pre-Columbian civilization. Strategize, accrue wealth, gain the favor of the gods, and become the builder of the magnificent pyramid of the sun. So this game is Teotihuacan, City of the Gods. It's designed by Daniel Ticini and published by Board and Dice. Another game in the T series. So I went over the theme a little bit. Theme, I don't know if it really matters in this game a whole lot.
I think it's.
You think so?
I think it's really entwined into the.
You think it's entwined into the game?
Yeah.
Right? Well, I don't get that a whole lot. Maybe it's because I played it almost 100 times. And it just seems like the mechanics of the game are taking over at that point.
I've heard Tyler make this claim before, but I also have never really seen the theme.
Go look up Teotihuacan on like Wikipedia and read about the city and tell me.
I do remember you talking about
like
that.
the game is there are some thematic elements in there that are really cool.
I think it follows the setting, but that's a whole different argument.
Yeah, like what I'm doing, moving to a spot. Do I feel like do I feel like I'm building a pyramid? Well, maybe a little bit because there's a pyramid there, but I
love the pyramid.
I love the pyramid too. So this game, the whole board is a giant rondel, and you have these dice that represent workers. And the workers, I think the coolest part of the game is the workers start weak, right? So they're level 1 workers. They're not going to get you as much. You move around the board, and the higher the level of your worker, the more benefit you're going to get for that worker in most cases. So if I have a 1 and I go and try and get a wood resource, it's going to get me, I think the first level is a cocoa, right? If it's a level 4, it's going to get me more resources. And as you move more workers to the same place, that compounds. If you move 4 workers that are a level 4 to a spot, you're going to get a whole ton of cool stuff, right? That's a super interesting part of the game. But you're moving around and you have a choice. When you land on a spot, you either use the action on that spot and level up your worker, or you can go in another area on that spot to lock that worker, but you get another cool bonus, right?
Yep.
You can potentially go up on 1 of 3 temple tracks, or you get these bonus tiles and tokens that'll give you additional benefits in the game, or be scoring tiles in the case of masks that will, at the end of every era, will give you bonus points. So you're moving these workers around. When they get to a certain level, so after 5, when they're going to flip to the 6, then they ascend. Go back to a level 1, which is always an interesting decision of when you're going to do that. And you get another additional bonus for doing that. You want the powerful workers, but you also want them to ascend because you get bonuses, and you don't have to feed them as much at the end of each round. You do this for, you get to the end of a round. It's an eclipse phase, I think is what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you do a kind of a mid-game scoring, and then you go to the next round. You do that 3 times, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. You're building a temple in the middle of the table.
And decorating it.
And you're decorating. There you go. Thematic ties.
Wait, what? I didn't realize that at all.
No, you're matching symbols. But it's
it's very decorative.
It's very decorative. It looks really pretty.
It is pretty.
You're trying to basically match these decoration tiles with the what's printed on the temple tiles, and if you match that, you get to move up the temple tracks and you get additional points. A lot of things to think about in this game. Super strategic. It's just an amazing experience. And I think it's the best game in the T series.
I agree.
Yeah.
The decisions with the dice are just incredible. There's times where it's like, that's the die I want to move the most. But if I move that, I know Kevin's about to come to this space.
Yeah, right.
And by moving, I'll make it cheaper for him to carry out an action there.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll move somebody else,
Yeah.
One of the most satisfying things in this game is when you have like 2 5s on a space and you move another die with the value of 5 onto that space and you get super powerful rewards, super tons of stuff. And then you get to ascend a couple of them,
twice,
which comes with all these bonus rewards that then you can link together. And I don't know, that's
really satisfying.
And you can jump a ton of points.
Yeah, and you can set that up. You're setting that up for a long time.
You set it up the whole round, or the whole previous round, and then you do it right at the beginning of the next round. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, and what's cool too is there's a variable setup on the board. So where those action selection spots are, every game can be different, and it's super important where they end up because that can affect your strategy. You can have your stone and your wood before the temple spot, which means you're going to be able to build the temple super easy. Or those spots can be after the temple, which is going to make it harder, and it just completely affects how you play the game and your strategy, I think. So there's just a ton to think about.
I love this game.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's, like I said, by far the best in the T series for me. And that's why it's so high as number 7 on my list. That's Teotihuacan.
So my number 7 game is also a city-based game. This one is based in Lisboa. It's a game designed by Vital Lacerda, published by Eagle Gryphon Games. Let me first say that I love Eagle Gryphon Games. We've talked about them a lot. They have a lot of really great things. They're another one of those publishers that I really like. We talked about Mind Clash earlier. I really like Mind Clash. We've talked about Board and Dice, which does great production value. This is no exception, because you put on top of this Vital Lacerda plus Ian O'Toole artwork, and you've got a great recipe for an awesome game. I think that this may be one of my favorite Ian Toole artwork board games. I know some people don't necessarily like that because it's a very blue theme, but I think it's unique and it's special, and I really like that about this game.
I agree. I think it's my favorite as well. It's awesome.
It's unique, and like that was one of the first things that I noticed about this game. Like when I started seeing this board, I immediately was interested in knowing, what is this game? I want to play this game. I want to experience it. And so I sought a way to get my hands on this game, and I did. One of the things, though, to point out is this is a Vital Lacerda game, and if you've never played a Vital Lacerda game, these are heavy games.
I don't think I'm smart enough to play these games, to be honest.
I sometimes feel the same way. The benefit about this, though, is I think that this, of all the Vital Lacerda games I've played, which are only a handful, but I've played, I think, let's see, the Gallerist, On Mars, and Lisboa. I think those are the 3 that I've played. I don't think I've played any. Oh, and I've played Mercado de Lisboa, but I'm not including that one in this.
It's a little bit lighter, right?
Yeah, that's kind of and
it was a co-design too.
It was a co-design. It wasn't exclusively his, but it does take a mechanic that's in this game, Lisboa, and then puts it on and focuses only on that, because that's how depthy Vital Lacerda games are, is that you can take out a whole entire mechanic and make a game out of it.
There's you could probably make 4 games out of it. Right?
Exactly. You could deconstruct Lisboa or any of his games and have several different games.
A series of games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
But this game, it's great. It's the simplest of his heavyweight games, I think, because essentially what you're doing in this game is really you're playing a card from your hand. You're then going to pick up a card and you're going to do an action. It's very simple. That's all you're doing each time. Now, the different things you can do is going to be vast. You have these cards are multi-use, so there's a lot of different things that you can do on it. So it is kind of hard to wrap your head around at first, but once you start getting it, you understand. It has a rule reference booklet. not a rule reference card. It has a rule reference booklet. So this game has a lot going on.
Trickerion has that too.
Trickerion has it as well. But that's more about like symbol recognition and like looking at what every card is in Trickerion. In Lisboa, you need to read the rule differences, like the order of turn and how things go. You need it really to understand the flow of the game.
I think it's funny. We played, little tangent here, and we'll get back to Lisboa, but we played On Mars, and I still think it's hilarious that Tyler printed out like a 20-page rules reference to that game, which was, it was helpful, but the fact that it was like a 20-page rule reference.
It wasn't the rule book.
It wasn't the rule book. It was just the reference,
Man,
So that's the nature of
a Lisboa, or like a Lacerda game. Yeah. And that's exactly
I forgot about that.
That's exactly what you're doing though here with this game is you have a rules reference booklet, and that makes it feel daunting, but I think it's a lot more approachable of a game than any other Lacerda game because of the really streamlined nature of the play a card, draw a card, take an action. It's really pretty direct. Once you get the iconography and the symbol and the flow of the game, you start to understand it. There's some really good player interaction in this game. You have, for example, like shipping that can happen, and everybody can collect ships, but when those ships go out and deliver their goods is going to be contingent on how players are playing, and you can actually go and put goods on somebody else's ship so that when they ship that, you're going to get points, and there's some really fun dynamic to that. You have the ability to really kind of customize your engine and do what you want in this game. That makes it really interesting, I think. I love that this game is kind of a tribute to Vital Lacerda's hometown kind of experience, and he puts so much history and theme into this game that it really, you feel what's going on. You're trying to reconstruct and rebuild Lisboa after a massive earthquake, and there's a lot of really fun things that there's just too much really in this game to like really condense it, but every time I think about this game, I just want to play it again and experience it again, and that's why
you own this game.
I do own this game.
Did you know that?
Yes, I knew that. I listen.
Yeah, I own this game, Tyler.
It sounds like a great setting for a game.
It is. It's a Euro in particular, right? Like,
yeah, and I love the fact that you say it's the most accessible of the Lacerda games. It's one that I've been interested in playing, so I'd love to get this one to the table. And it's one that I've wanted to maybe purchase for a while now. I ended up purchasing On Mars for some reason. That one may be on the the Cole list as well.
You bought the expansion too.
I bought the expansion too. I may have a problem. I don't know. But this Lisboa sounds super interesting. And like I said before, and like you said, the art style is just something that just draws you into the game and makes me want to explore it. Which is really cool.
This would be, I think, a great game to start a little earlier on like a Saturday and get played and knock it out. I would love to play it. I've only played On Mars of Vital Lacerda games, so. I
will also point out that this is the first time I played this in like 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
For the first time I played this. Compared to On Mars, which took us like
6 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say 5, but you're right.
No, it was 6 hours.
6 hours.
We were like 2 hours to play the first round.
Yeah.
Well, it was crazy to me because Tyson and I were like, we'll be smart and we'll watch a tutorial. We're like, okay, here we found one. It was like a 20-minute tutorial, and it was only part 1. So we're like, oh crap, we got to watch part 2 of this tutorial. So that one's a meaty one.
And then we still went over the rules.
Yeah, and then we still went over the rules.
Yeah, that game's a beast.
It is. Yeah.
But yeah, so of all the Lacerdas, I think that this is a good entry point Lacerda, and I want to play this one more. That's why it's my number 7, Lisboa.
All right, my number 7 is Kevin's number 7, Teotihuacan.
Crossover, all right. Teotihuacan.
Yeah, that's my number 7. I don't have anything to really add other than another beautiful job by Board and Dice. I love how big the board is, how amazing the art is. I think it's awesome. And I'm excited that I think they announced next year they're going to be doing a deluxe version of this game, which is...
Did they say if it was going to be upgraded pieces or...
I think they have. And
said that?
I've seen they've changing the boards a little bit.
Oh, cool.
Which
awesome.
They look beautiful. There's a couple snapshots of some of the new art. So.
I think you mentioned this already. I love the art as it is already.
I do too.
Better art obviously is going to be even better.
Yeah.
But this game, it's not that expensive.
It's not.
It's pretty, and for what you get, it's just crazy.
Yeah. And hopefully the deluxe version, the expansion pieces will be the same color as the base game pieces.
You don't have
pink and red.
Pink and red together. Yeah.
No, but that's my number 7, Teotihuacan, City of Gods.
My number 6 is a game that has already been mentioned in Tyler's list at number 12, and that is Scythe. I'm not going to talk a lot about how this one plays, but I will, go into a little bit of what I like about Scythe. So it's set in the an alternate 1920s history where there's mechs out on the mechs in the world, and you're putting mechs out onto the board. You have top row and bottom row actions that you can take, and I love looking at your board before the game starts and figuring out how you can maximize your turns to get your engine going so that you can take your top row and bottom row actions every turn if you can. And whoever gets that going first usually is going to do pretty well in the game. There is war in this game, but it's not a lot. You only get incentivized typically for battling twice in the game. You get stars for battling, and there's only spots for two stars unless you're playing with a specific faction. So there's not a whole lot of confrontation.
It's more the threat of confrontation.
Yeah.
That Cold War vibe.
Exactly. So you can be sitting on a bunch of resources, and there's that tension of, well, man, is somebody going to come, try and get those resources from me, for example, or you're trying to control a certain area of the board and then somebody encroaches on your area. Maybe they're next to a tunnel that they can get to you quickly. And you're just constantly thinking about maybe somebody's going to come get me. And that's more of what it is. It's just the threat of that happening. Sometimes it actually happens and you lose resources or you get pushed off the board and you have to go back to your home area. But more often than not, it's, kind of that tension of, is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? It's the race to get a 6 stars, and whoever does that first, the game ends right away. Sometimes that can sneak up on you, and it's always a cool feeling when you have an objective and you pull off a turn where maybe you get 3 stars at once and the game's over and everybody's like, what the heck happened?
Or trigger 2 battles in one turn and win them both.
Yep,
Yeah.
Exactly. It's one of the first games that I got, and I think I mentioned this before, that I really started getting upgraded pieces for. It's got this massive board. The table presence is amazing. It's an awesome game. It's fallen a little bit for me. It was my number 1 game for a while. Hasn't fallen a lot, but it's still one that I'd gladly get played at any time. So that is my number 6, Scythe.
My number 6 game is a little bit of a cheat, I think.
I was going to say, I had to do a double take when I saw this.
It's cheating because the game hasn't been released. And so...
Wasn't this supposed to come out like 3 years ago?
Well, this was on Kickstarter at the same time that Carnegie was on Kickstarter.
Right, yeah.
And it hasn't actually come to table. The game I'm talking about is Darwin's Journey. It's designed by Simone Luciani and Nestor Mangone, I think, and it's published by Thundergriff Games. So Simone Luciani, one of the designers of this game, is also a designer of another great game that I like, Lorenzo Il Magnifico, and he's done a lot of great games, to include one that you've talked about recently, Kevin Barrage, and he's done a lot of really great games, and the styles of games that he does are games that I tend to really like. But I got an opportunity to play this a few times before it was released. I got to play a preview copy of the game because I had a friend who was a reviewer that was playing it, and he invited me over several times to play this game. And I really started to enjoy this game. And so I went all in on the Kickstarter. I'm waiting for my copy to arrive, and I'm eagerly waiting for it, but it's been delayed due to COVID issues and all sorts of other things. So I'm hoping...
Is it stuck in the Galapagos?
It's stuck in the Galapagos. No, but the game does follow Darwin on his journey through the Galapagos. That's exactly what's going on in this game. And it's him developing his theory of evolution and studying different animals and creatures and things like that so that he could come up with that. But what you're doing in the game is this is essentially a worker placement game. And in it, you're going around and you have several maps of islands on the board, and these maps are kind of areas that you can explore. But on top of that, you have half of the board is dedicated to worker placement spots, which allow you to do various different things. Additionally, everybody has a player board, and on your player board, you have the ability to strengthen your worker abilities. So every worker that you have has a set number of actions that they can do by putting seals on them. And you can collect more seals and increase what your worker is able to do and how efficient he or she is able to do it as you put them down. The other great thing about this as a worker placement game that I really liked was that every game you can have different worker placement spots and actions. They'll change up. There's a ton of variability in this game, but you get to put these lenses on different places, worker spots, and when somebody goes to one that you've got a lens on, you get a bonus. They still get to do the action, but you get a payout for them going and using one that you unlocked or discovered. The other thing about it is that you have these objective tiles that I can't even think about how many different objective tiles there are, but there are so many in the game that you're unlocking and setting these objectives that create combo actions. And like you talked about, Kevin, in like Lost Ruin of Arnak, and the different efficiencies that you put by making your actions work together and combo with one another, there's a lot of that in this game. The one thing that is really interesting, I think, about the island mechanic as well is that it has a race type of feel, because the farther along you go on an island, the more you get. So you want to go further into the island, deeper into the island, and you'll find better discoveries as you go. But because there are 3 different islands, you can choose to sell your boat, the Beagle, to a different island that somebody else hasn't really started focusing on exploring, and you can catch up and get really good bonuses that way. There is so much in this game that I've enjoyed, and I'm just super excited to be able to get this game when it finally arrives. I want to play this game a lot more, and I'm excited for that opportunity to do it.
It always made me laugh that the ship was called I think it was HMS, but
the HMS Beagle.
Beagle, yeah. Like, I don't know why. Did you know he wasn't always an evolutionist?
No.
Yeah. He became one slowly over time.
I was waiting for the punchline.
What was his favorite breed of dog? This is too easy because I just talked about it.
Jeez.
Is it a dachshund? That was a joke.
Tyson, look what you started. Yeah. Dang it. There's
I'm
more?
good. No,
there's more?
I'm good. That one's not appropriate. Did you finish?
I'm trying.
Oh, okay.
So
well,
that's
I'm not holding you up.
Yes, you are.
He did the arm thing. So
I know. Every time he does the arm thing,
that we know he's transitioning.
That's Darwin's Journey, my number 6 game on my top 10.
So my number 6 is a game that we've also done a feature review of back in episode 7. This is a masterpiece of a game. This is Anachrony, designed by David Turczi and published by Mindclash Games. This game is, I'm not going to talk about it too much. We've talked about it before. It's action selection, worker placement game time travel loan mechanic that's awesome. The theme is incredible. And I think the balance between the asynchronous factions asymmetric factions just really shines. Every time I play this, I want to play it more, whether I win or whether I get destroyed. I have a blast playing this game. The production quality, it's Mind Clash, out of this world, top tier, from the future. If you've been listening for a while, you know this game is one of our favorites. So that is my number 6, Anachrony.
So my number 5 is a game designed by Richard Borg and published by Days of Wonder, and this is Memoir 44. I've talked a lot about Memoir 44. In case you don't know what it's about, it's a World War II game. It's a very light war game, 2-player war game, and it's scenario-based. So you're playing actual battles that happened in World War II. Which is really cool. There's a little blurb before each scenario where you can read historically what happened in the battle, and then you play it out. So it's a card-based war game. You get a number of cards based on what the scenario is, and these cards will allow you to activate certain sections of your board. There's a right flank, there's a left flank, and then there's a center area.
Is it also a flank?
It would not be a flank if it is the center.
You could be flanked there, though.
You could be flanked from a flank.
I see why you're not so good at this game, Tyler.
Do you have any other meaningful contributions to this discussion, Tyler?
Well, shut up.
But you're playing cards. So on your turn, it's super easy. You're going to play one card and you're going to do what that card says. And most of the time, you're activating units on the board. When you activate, you can move them. So you move all of your units first, and then you will battle with those units. And you roll a number of dice based on how close you are to whoever you're battling and what type of unit you're battling with. Tanks have a little bit further range. Your artillery is going to reach even further than that. Your infantry is going to be more close battle. You roll dice, and then you take off units based on any hits that you roll on those dice. It's a very tactical game. You're moving around the board. You're trying to position yourself in a place where it's going to give you a better advantage and more probability of rolling the dice that you want. And at the end of the day, it's a dice game. You can roll misses the whole game, and you're going to get hosed. But it's all about probabilities and getting yourself in position to make yourself successful.
And not getting flanked.
Yes. Flanking is definitely a part of this game. When you play a scenario, it's about 20 minutes. You can flip the board around and play the other side because a lot of times it's very uneven. Whoever has the most medals, you get a medal when you completely wipe out a unit on the board. Whoever gets the most medals or meets the objectives of the scenario is going to be the winner. And that's typically medals that you receive from temporary objectives or wiping somebody off the board. So this is an awesome game. It has a great BGA implementation. I always have a game going with Matt, my brother-in-law, or Mark, or sometimes both at the same time. I play random people as well. The cool thing about BGA is you can just it will randomly select a scenario, and there are hundreds of scenarios on BGA. There's a lively community where you can pretty much play any scenario you would like. So awesome game. Love it.
So while this didn't make my top 30 list, I totally think that it has the potential to make other people's top 30 list because of everything that you've just said, Kevin. Like, it is a fantastic experience. One of the big things that I don't like about it personally is that I don't get to play it enough as a 2-player on the table, and the setup time and takedown can be a lot if you have. If you don't have the time to set it up, it can be hard. But I love what you were just talking about, BGA, is that you get a lot of opportunity to play any of these scenarios, which some can be a lot more difficult to get to the table than others. But I really I've played this one on BGA like 10, 15 times. And I don't think I've ever played with you on BGA, Kevin.
Oh, I didn't know you were playing.
I've played I played you. Oh, I'm not allowed to say anything?
So yeah, I agree with your comment about having it be difficult to get to the table. But once you get it set up, the table presence is awesome. Like the breakthrough scenarios where you have the double deep board, which is really cool.
The tanks are awesome.
Or you have the Overlord scenarios where it's two boards basically put together and you got massive amounts of tanks and armies on the table, and you got, the terrain's pre-printed. So that helps in setup on those Overlord maps, which is really cool.
I know this isn't like a traditional war game, but this is like the gateway into war games. I feel like the baby step into that direction, and it makes me interested in that genre in general. I've watched a number of war games played, but like I like the thematic and the historical ties that this game has as well.
This is a game that I've played a few times on BGA. I played with you. It's one of those games that I played knowing like 80% of the rules, I think. It's a game that I would like to explore more. Playing you or Mark at this point, I think, would be a little intimidating. Tyson, maybe you and I could play.
I'd absolutely. I don't think I do well. I think all the games I've played, this is like a Railroad Inc. situation where I lose regularly.
Let's definitely
but
play
I enjoy
them.
the experience nonetheless.
This is a game that we've gone over as a family to Mark's house, and Logan took over our copy to play with Mark. So Logan's played more times with Mark than I have. But no, it's a good game. I would like to explore this more. I will note one of my favorite Christmas movies, Krampus. In the background in Max's room, there's a stack of a few games, and Memoir 44 is one of them. Yeah, it's gone mainstream. Great movie. Go see Krampus. Go rent it, buy it. It's amazing.
I love how the somehow Memoir 44,
Memoir 44 turned into Krampus.
Promotion.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
It is my number 5, Memoir 44.
So my number 5 game is one that's already been discussed in this very episode. In fact, it is Scythe. I'm not going to go in depth on it. Kevin has addressed a lot of everything I like about this game. The one thing that I do want to point out is that this was the first time that I think I ever saw in a board game where your resources were not in your hand, they were on the map. And you had to be able to manage what was there. And I think the first time I ever experienced what it was like to not be controlling your own resources was an eye-opening experience when somebody came in and saw that I had I think I left them completely unguarded because I was going to come back the next turn or whatever. And somebody somehow swooped in there, grabbed all my resources, and then used them. And I was like, this game has some interesting choices in here that I hadn't realized. And it adds to that whole Cold War kind of standoff element that's in it. I think this game does really well. This game, whereas in the past, it would have been my number 1 game, and for a long time, it was my number 1 game. It's fallen a little bit, but that's not to say that the game itself has like fallen in what it offers, but rather there's just so many good games that continue to come out that like I'm continually impressed. And the fact that Scythe has remained there since it came out has a lot to say about it. So that's my number 5 game, Scythe.
So speaking of games where you leave resources on the table, my number 5, are you ready for this? It is Dead Reckoning. This is published by AEG, and it was designed by John D. Clare. The art, it's another Ian O'Toole game. I love his style. That's one of the things that initially attracted me to this game. We did a feature review of this game all the way back in episode 11. This is the quintessential pirate game that I want to play. I think, Tyson, you described it at one point using that very word, and I just stole that because I thought it was perfect. It's an area control, card drafting, deck building game where you sleeve your new abilities into your existing crew cards instead of adding more cards to your deck. So you're upgrading these cards by adding abilities to them. You buy upgrades for your ship. You're upgrading your crew members. They become more powerful. It's one of those games where you start out and your turns are pretty quick, but they're kind of, you just don't have a lot going on. But as you're upgrading your crew members and getting new abilities and upgrading your ship, you just become more and more powerful as the rounds go on. There are multiple paths to victory, but area control plays a big part, just like it does in Scythe at the end of the game. That is a huge way to get lots of points. You're trying to get the most points by the end of the game, which is represented in gold. I've had a blast playing this game. I'm still exploring all the Saga expansions and all the new content that they add to the base game. And I think it's really cool. For the most part, the content that is in the Saga expansions, you can leave in the base game. Crafting aspect is amazing. That is one of my favorite parts about this game, because not only are you adding abilities, you're sleeving these abilities to a card, but you're also upgrading the crew members from level 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And the crew members become so much more powerful, and the things that you can do in this game are just so much fun. There's some battling, there's building forts and trying to defend the islands that you've explored and laid your stake on. So, you're trying to protect those and maintain control of those. There's a lot going on in this game, but I really enjoy it. If not for this game, I think Scythe might still be in my top 10. With this game added to my collection, Scythe dropped down a little bit to number 12. But I think this is a beautiful game, and I'm excited for new content from the new Kickstarter. I really have enjoyed every single play that I've had of this game.
I think the only reason this game is not in my top 30 is just because I haven't played it enough. I played it the one time, and I haven't had a chance to play it since. I did back the Kickstarter. I'm excited to get it.
Oh, you did? I forgot about that.
I want to, because exactly what you were just talking about, this is the type of pirate experience board game that I've always wanted, and I want to explore that more.
There's a lot of similarities to Scythe. I don't think it's a Scythe killer for me at all. I think one of the reasons is the battle mechanic in this game for me kind of fell flat. I know the cube tower looks, it is impressive to look at, but I like the battle mechanic in Scythe better. I think it does it better, at least for my taste in games. It's more deterministic in Scythe. You can go into a battle knowing you're going to win, and you can set yourself up for that, right? As the attacker, you're going to break ties, right? This one it's got, the cube tower is essentially just a randomizer like dice, right? Yep. It just does it in a different way. But it doesn't quite do it for me as well as it does in Scythe. And with those games being as similar as they are, because they are similar.
It's a comparable point to talk about.
Yeah, as similar as they are, it's just my tastes gravitate more towards how Scythe does things.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think that one of the biggest critiques that Scythe receives is its battle mechanic. Like, a lot of people think that it's too simplistic, right? That it's not actually a battle mechanic. It is very deterministic, which I agree. I actually enjoy that, because it's a mind game, which adds to the whole Cold War mind experience. Like
I can control that more,
right?
And that's why I like it a little bit more. It's because I have more control over that.
But there are also times where you go into that battle and you have zero chance of winning.
But then. So conversely, though, I agree with you on that.
But if you're initiating the battle, you probably won't put yourself in that position, right?
Sure, but I mean, if you're not focusing on that track, or you're not focusing on getting battle cards, which are the two determining factors in how well you do in the battle, and someone comes in with power 7 and they've got 12 battle cards in their hand, like, you're not going to win that.
Sure.
And what's the point of even?
But then the mind game.
There's no play there,
because then the play is
trying to get them to spend as many.
Are you going to force them to spend more, or are they going to pretend to spend a lot, and actually could you beat them because they want to hold on to this for a different battle?
You're going to make them lose all of that progress they've made on that track, which gives them a star at the end potentially, right? So there's still decisions to be made, even though you're going to lose the battle, right?
I'm not saying that I like the battling in Dead Reckoning more than the battling in Scythe. That's my one complaint with the Scythe battle. The complaint with Dead Reckoning is it's a little more random, right? But I do love the chance that you could get the 1 in a million shot that helps you win a battle or a encounter or whatever. And sometimes in Scythe there are no chances for that.
I think
that's my only complaint. Comparing just battle to battle, I would probably say Scythe has a better battle mechanic.
I don't know that I agree. I think they're apples and oranges, but I
different.
think
It's preference.
What I like about Dead Reckoning's battle mechanic is that it feels engaging and thematic to me, right? Like it's not. Essentially, what you said, Kevin, is right. It's basically a dice chucker in a different way, but like because it's pirates.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like, okay, this is cool. Look, I'm tossing this stuff out of a ship that looks like it's actually cannon fodder.
What I love is guiding the cubes where you want them to go.
That is not part of the game.
But it is.
So I do think it's hilarious, regardless of the outcome of the battle, as far as who wins it or who destroys whose ship or whatever. You can go into a battle and win so much booty out of the battle that you have to like dump it in the ocean, which is hilarious to me. Yeah. But yeah, so there are a lot of similarities. We talked about that at length all the way back in episode 11. They're both phenomenal games for me. I don't think that Dead Reckoning is a Scythe killer. I just think that Scythe has dropped a little bit on my list with Dead Reckoning there. I would rather play Dead Reckoning. I would still love to play Scythe at any time. So my number 5, Dead Reckoning.
All right, my number 4 is another game that we did a feature review on, and that is Aeon's End. This is designed by Kevin Riley, Jenny Iglesias, and Nick Little, with the publishing done by Indie Boards and Cards. So I'm not going to talk in depth about how this game works. If you want to know how it works, go back and listen to our feature review. We go in depth about the mechanics of the game and the theme. What I do want to highlight is 2 things that this game does that are different in the deck building genre than any other deck builder that I've played. The first is normally when you discard cards in a deck builder, your discard becomes your new draw pile. You shuffle your discard, and then that becomes your new draw pile. This one, you just flip over your discard pile, and then it becomes your new draw pile. That creates some super interesting decisions that I've never seen before in a deck builder or any game for that matter. How you discard cards becomes super important because that's how you're going to draw them on future turns. So it creates some interesting decisions on the cards that you purchase and the order in which you do things and how you discard those cards. That's number 1. Number 2 is the variable turn order system in this game. So you have a deck that has nemesis cards and it has turn order cards based on who's playing the game. You shuffle that deck and then you start flipping over cards, and that will tell you who takes a turn. It adds a little bit of randomness, a little bit of chaos, because you can flip over 2 nemesis cards in a row, for example, and that's the big bad guy that you're fighting, and he can do a ton of damage to you. In a 2-player game, you get 2 turns per round, and that creates some interesting decisions. You can take a double turn, which always feels awesome, great, which is cool. Those 2 things are what really sets Aeon's End apart for me. And really from any deck builder, it just kind of, it levels it up for me. The theme's awesome. Your breach mages, you're getting attacked. Your city of Gravehold is trying, you have a few ways to lose the game. If Gravehold goes down to 0, or if everybody on your team gets knocked out, then you lose. It's one of those games where you feel like it's overwhelming and you're going to lose, but you a lot of times come back and win at the end, similar to what we've talked about in Cthulhu Death May Die. Awesome game. I love it. It's cooperative. It's, I think, very deserving of my number 4, and that's Aeon's End.
I've seen this game for years and just kind of skipped over it. The art on the original game reminded me of an old Dungeons and Dragons computer game called Dungeon Hack. But just kind of glanced past it. I'm so glad that I think, Kevin, you originally got this game, right?
Yeah, Matt referenced Matt quite a bit, but he brought it over earlier this year he had it, and I'm like, yeah, let's give it a shot and play. And that's where I got introduced to it. And I tried to steal his copy before he left. He wouldn't let me. So I immediately ordered it, and that's where it started. So since then, back to Kickstarter. I bought Legacy of Gravehold. I have the first Legacy coming along with some other expansions. So there's just a ton of content for this game that I still need to explore.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you found it, or that Matt introduced you to it, and that we played it. The fact that it's a cooperative deck builder is awesome, but then just the trying to plan out and figure out how to discard your cards and which actions to take and what order so that they come out favorably in the next draw, that is such a cool concept. I really like that.
And I feel like you really need to cooperate with your team to maximize everybody's abilities in order to be successful. And it's one of those games like we've already talked about where you figure it out, you figure out the puzzle, and it's just a satisfying experience to do that, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So that's my number 4, Aeon's End.
So my number 4 game is a game that I think is the single best bag builder out there.
Agreed.
It is Orleans. And it is a game designed by Rainer Stockhausen and published by DLP Games. In the U.S., it was published by Tasty Minstrel Games until they no longer continued publishing games. So Capstone picked this one up. But this is a game in which you are... I don't even know the theme of this other than... the theme is not all that important in this game.
It's a Euro.
It is a very Euro, but what you're doing in the game is really engaging. Every round there's going to be what is called an hourglass tile. It's an event tile. It's going to determine something that's going to happen that round. You may have to pay taxes. You may have plagues or famines that you're going to have to spend resources to feed your people, or there may be good bonuses that happen throughout the turn. The interesting thing about that is that you reveal the tile at the start of the round and you resolve it at the end of the round. So you get the whole round to get to prepare for that. But once that's been revealed, everybody then will go ahead and usually draw tiles from, or not tiles, but chips from a bag. And everybody starts with a bag of the same set of chips. You have the same things. There are different things, people that you can have in your bags. You can have monks, farmers, craftsmen, traders, boatmen, knights, or scholars. And you don't have necessarily all of those in the bag at the start, but you can acquire and get those as you're going through. Everybody's going to draw a number of characters from their bag. Then simultaneously, you get to take your workers and select where they're going to go on your individual player boards. And this is important because while people are deciding, it can be important to see what your neighbors are doing and where they're placing stuff, because it can influence how you're going to do stuff, which is interesting. This is a very Euro-y game, but there is interaction and where somebody's going to place their stuff, when they're going to do actions, the timing of actions,
the turn order.
Yeah.
That separate board. People
Exactly.
can get in each other's way.
Once everybody's placed, then you're going to perform actions, and that's where these separate boards come in. You're going to be placing tiles or these chips on your own board and performing different actions. Most of the actions are you getting different workers to be able to collect and add to your bag so that you can do more powerful actions as you go on. But then there's also things like you can acquire additional action spaces so that you can do more things. And there's a ton of different potential actions that you can add to your own tableau, which makes the game really interesting, because while everybody starts with a set of specific actions that everybody has access to, the game doesn't necessarily end that way, because everybody can have their own unique things that basically tunnel where your strategy is going to go. It helps you understand what you're doing. There is so much interesting choices that are made there. You have that separate player board that Kevin was talking about, citizens board, I think is what it's called. And you can get these citizens to create multipliers in your points. And then additionally, you have the main board, which has the map, and you can travel around and collect goods and do different things. This game also has tracks. We've talked about going up a track.
Good old tracks.
Right. This game has that in abundance as well. And there's just so much I think I love about this game. It, like I said, the best bag builder that I think I've ever played.
Yeah, there are a few things that came to mind while you were talking. I love the citizen board or whatever. Not only can you get citizens, which are part of the multiplier, but you're gaining a reward. You're filling up a slot, though, that is permanently there, and you're potentially taking that spot from someone else. But you're also culling your bag by doing that, which is just awesome. I love that aspect of the game. I love when you are buying new chips. Not only do you generally get a new chip, but you also get some reward associated with that track. The area control of racing around the map and trying to beat people to specific places so that you can build your town hall or guild hall or whatever because they can only be each location, each city can only have one guild hall, and just trying to beat people to places. But also there's like textiles and cheese and wine, victory point tiles that are laid out that some paths are better to take than others. But then you also have to, the action or the chips required for advancing on a road versus a waterway are different chips. And so there's just so many cool things to do. So many paths to victory. This is such a great game. And we talked about this when I think when we talked about Quacks and also even Wonderland's War. This is a bag builder game where you don't draw tiles that or chips that punish or hurt you. You might draw a less optimal hand than you'd like at times, but you can always do something, whether it's just putting those out into slots on your board to build towards an action in a later round or not, or whatever, but none of them hurt you. And that is, I think, a strong point for this as a bag builder. I think that's
one of the main reasons why it's the best bag builder to me is that like there is no...
You're not going to blow up your pot.
Right, exactly. There's no chance at you getting a super negative deterrent like in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like you said, Tyler, you may get a less optimal hand, but
you can still put it to good use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is,
and it's finding those ways to do that makes it interesting still. If it's like, that I was really hoping for this, but what can I do with this and how can I work it to my strategy so that I can still perform optimally?
Which you can build it up from round to round when you draw crummy tiles. It does stink in the 18th last round that you draw a less optimal hand. But that happens. It is what it is. So.
Yeah, this one's a lot of fun. I've had it for a long time. It didn't make my top 30, but I'd have to look and see where it landed, but it's pretty close. It is by far the best bag builder, in my opinion, for the reasons you guys explained. It's like everything you get is a positive thing. You're not going to pull negative stuff out of the bag. And I love what you mentioned, Tyson, that I love games where you have something that's just yours and it's unique to you. And you can take that action. And everybody else is like, oh, that's awesome. I really wish I had that. It's yours,
because everybody can get stuff like that. It's like, oh, that is powerful. I see why you're using it that way. And that it's great. Maybe
but everybody's
going to
have,
but
everybody's going to have stuff
there are
in the game, right?
There are a number of tiles that are a little more powerful than some of the other tiles. And I think you have to be careful when you're playing with new players to ease up a little bit. Not go after.
Make them aware.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I guess that's the best option, right?
Yeah.
That is maybe one of the downsides to the game is because there are so many options out there. If you're playing with new people, you're going to be explaining every time a new tile comes out. And there's a lot of options to choose from. So if you have to explain every one of those, there may be some downtime, but that's only on the learning game.
Yeah, it slows down. And, when they get a chance to buy one of those tiles, they take the whole stack and
look through them. Yeah.
It's not just flipping over 2 or 3 and having them pick between, which you could explain really quickly.
Yeah, that slows the game down, and that is very overwhelming. I remember the first time I played, I'm like, what? I can look at the whole stack?
Yeah.
It's like, why wouldn't they just say, hey, here's the 4 you can choose from, and then just choose from one of those,
Sounds like a good opportunity for a house rule.
Well, we've played with a house rule like that with how Dan played.
We did.
He limited the amount of tiles we played with, which I thought was fine and it worked really well. But like, if you want to avoid house ruling it, Kevin, then
And I do.
I actually am looking right now on BGG. They have in the files section of this one a really good player aid that gives you like, it's not just a good player aid just for the tiles, but it's like a good player aid on like turn order and what's the player boards are like. And it would be, if I were teaching this, I would probably print this off front and back and then give this to everybody and say, hey, here's what's going on. And it's a really well done player aid. That was created by Walt Mueller, Wham Boy Ill, on BGG.
Nice.
Way to go, Wham Boy Ill.
Yeah. But yeah, all in all, I think this is the best bag builder and one of the best games. It's my number 4. That's Orleans.
All right. My number 4 is a game that we've talked about at length, Cthulhu Death May Die. It was Tyson's number 9. We did a feature review. This game is just incredible. Love all the thematic moments. Loved everything that's been mentioned on this episode and previous ones. My number 4, Cthulhu Death May Die.
My number 3 was number 16 on Tyler's list and number 30 on Tyson's list. And that is Pulsar 2849. This was designed by Vladimir Suchy and published by Czech Games Edition. So in Pulsar 2849, it is the year 2849, and humanity has harnessed the power of the pulsars. Blah, blah, blah. I don't think really the theme comes through on this one very, very well, unless, Tyler, I'm missing something on that. A little bit.
There's the solar systems traveling and putting out the gyrodynes, but that's about the.
But that's about it. It's about the mechanics.
Building transmitters so you can communicate better across time and space.
No,
right.
I stick to that. Was about the extent of it.
Yeah, there's a little bit. It's got a spacey theme to it for sure, and it's really cool when it's laid out on the board. It's got this cool circular board, and it looks like you're in space doing something. What's really cool about this game, and we've talked about it before already, is the dice drafting mechanic in this game is just mind-blowing, in my opinion. And the first time we played it, we were just like, this is amazing and fun. And we've talked about how that works already, but just as a quick recap, when you're drafting dice, you roll the dice, you figure out the median. Dice will go, ahead of the median and below the median, and based on where you select those dice, the higher dice are going to cause you to move back on the turn order track or the engineering track. If you take dice that are lower in value, you can't do as much with those dice, but you're going to get a bonus. You're going to go higher up on one of those tracks, either the turn order or the engineering track. And that makes for really interesting decisions because turn order can be a big deal. The engineering track can be a big deal because you get engineering cubes that allow you to do more things and cooler things. It just creates some super interesting decisions to be made and hard and tough decisions to make. It's just one of the coolest things that I've seen in a game. There's a big tech tree, and the tech tree gets you get more access to it as the game goes on. Each round, you're going to, the next level in the tech tree is going to be available. There's planning. As Tyler mentioned when he talked about it, the last, I think, 2 sections of that tech tree are endgame scoring, and positioning yourself to get access to those is super important, super stressful and tense, and you don't know if you're going to get there or not. You can't ignore the transmitters because the transmitters, we played a few games and there was runaway winners because one person got all the transmitters. So you got to watch what other people are doing. It's interactive in that way. You're cruising around the board, visiting planets, doing cool stuff. Endgame scoring is different. It can be different every game. There's a lot of variability there. Just super fun game, like we've already talked about. It's just awesome. I love it. And that's why it's all the way up at my number 3, Pulsar 2849.
It's my favorite Sushi game that I've played. So.
Same. Easy. Yeah.
Yep, I've had a few of them on my list. Underwater Cities is up there for me, but this one I think is by far his best design, for sure.
So my number 3 game is one we've talked about already multiple times, lots of times, and Tyler talked about it as his number 8. It's Ankh, Gods of Egypt, so I'm not going to really go into it. I will say that if you want to hear more recent thoughts, Tyler mentioned we talked about it in episode 1. We also did a look back of this one in episode 23, our 1-year anniversary episode. I love this game for everything that we've talked about. I want to play this game more. It's my style of game. I love the combat. I love the mind games in there. It's a great game. That's my number 3, Ankh, Gods of Egypt.
So similar to my number 4, my number 3 was also just discussed. It is Orleans. It was Tyson's number 4. We just had a good discussion about it. It's a great game. It's one of my favorites. Kevin introduced me to this game years ago, and I love having it in my collection. That's my number 3, Orleans.
My number 2 has already been referenced, and that is Cthulhu Death May Die. What else can we say about Cthulhu Death May Die?
I mean, we could continue talking.
I mean, it's just an amazing game. We've talked about it at length. It's just super cinematic. I love the theme. Disrupting the ritual. I mean, just everything about it is awesome. Can't wait till the Kickstarter fulfills. That's like a year down the road, though.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of time to wait.
Some of the new stuff that has been added looks incredible, though.
The relics, the like 800 investigators.
Yeah. The new madness conditions or whatever.
Oh, the insanity.
The insanity cards.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
The new way to add in additional monsters and make it even harder.
It adds variability where you can add, I think, any monster you want into a scenario, right? Yeah. Which is
There's
just crazy.
So much content.
Yeah, there. You could play this for a long time and not repeat anything. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the Riley Rising scenario that I backed, the monstrous Cthulhu statue, which is completely unnecessary, but looks like it's just going to be awesome. I'm excited for that as well. So my number 2, Cthulhu Death May Die.
My number 2 game is a game that I've played a lot of. I've had this game for a long time. It may have the most off-putting name to new gamers who are like, oh, I don't want to play that game. It's called Blood Rage. Blood Rage is designed by Eric Lang and published by CMON. Just like Ankh, which was my number 3, these are my styles of games that I really like. I love area control. I love soldiers on a map type of games. And these do it really well. One of the things that makes this game better to me than Ankh is that this game has a drafting phase, and in the drafting phase, you're gathering these cards that can be used for combat, and those are determining your strategies, and there's so many different ways to draft. You have different gods, and if you draft all of their set of cards, they are usually more powerful. So there's some hate drafting in there. If you see somebody going for the Thor or the Tyr or the Loki strategy, you want to make sure that, hey, I want to ensure that they're not necessarily getting out of hand with that. For example, Thor allows you to get more glory, and glory is the victory points in this game. So the more glory you get, the better it is. And Heimdall gives you foresight and gets to mess around with how the battles work. And then Loki just messes things up by he wants to lose battle.
Yeah.
And so it makes these really interesting strategies that can come in play. Essentially what you're doing is drafting these cards, and then you have what's called rage. Rage is your resource in this game, and you're spending this rage to do different actions, deploying troops on the map, or going ahead and moving things, or pillaging locations, doing all sorts of different things. There's a lot going on, and I really enjoy this game. I've enjoyed every play I've have of it. I love that this one has a 5th player expansion. I've played this one 5 players, and I think it works really well. I have always enjoyed this game. It's on BGA.
I don't
think it's the best representation, but I love that it's on BGA because I get to play it and I understand the game. But like, if you don't necessarily understand the game, it's not. Yeah,
it's not a good way to learn it. Right?
It's really not.
And it does lose something with the table presence because the minis are great.
Yes,
right, and the production is really good. So you do lose that on the digital version of it. But I agree with you. I'm glad it's there. Because you can get your fix, right?
Which I have many times. And like, it's great to hop back in. And when I can't get it to the table, at least I can do it there. And there's so much to appreciate. It's a come-on game, right? And so tons of minis. There's no shortage of
Expansion
expansions
content,
and
yeah.
all that stuff that you can get.
It surprises me that it beat out Ankh. It's probably a tough decision.
Did you waffle
for it,
on
right?
that at all?
It was hard to make that determination. Ankh is newer to me, but I think the big distinguishing part of Ankh for me is that usually when I'm playing Ankh, there is a higher chance of somebody who doesn't like playing Ankh than playing Blood Rage, right?
But Blood Rage is more accessible for sure.
Blood Rage is shorter playtime.
Right.
It's probably quicker turns. Like it's easier to digest, I think. I think between the two, it's just it's a little bit more efficient game than Ankh, and I think it works better with a wider audience of players.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that.
But yeah, so that's my number 2, Blood Rage.
So my number 2, I talked about the quintessential pirate game in Dead Reckoning. This is the quintessential Star Wars game for me. It's Star Wars Rebellion. Came out in 2016. It was designed by Corey Konieczka and published by Fantasy Flight Games. 2 to 4 players, really. It's a two-player game.
Yeah.
I've only ever played it at 2 players. That's the only way I ever want to play it. It is, like I said, the quintessential Star Wars game. The Empire is trying to squash the rebellion by sheer force. I mean, they're much more firepower. But basically you have this board that is covered in Star Wars planets. The Empire's trying to squash the rebellion. They're trying to find the rebel secret base, which can move during the course of the game from planet to planet, which is really cool. You know, they're sending out probes and they're trying to eliminate planets where the rebel base could be. Meanwhile, the rebellion is just trying to gain favor across the galaxy. They're, acting as insurgents. They are trying to sabotage and keep the fight alive, I guess, long enough to survive and win, and be a thorn in the Empire's side. I've only ever played this with my son Logan, and it has created some of our most fun, not only gaming moments, but just fun moments together as a father and son. And I have really loved that and cherished it. The battles are incredible. The intrigue, the asymmetric player cards are done amazing. So thematic and so perfect. It just, brings out things that happen in the movies, and it's just such an amazing game. I'm not sure I'll ever love a Star Wars game more than this one. I haven't come across one yet that I do. It's just an epic experience. And I think it is, I don't know. My love for, it's no secret that my love for Star Wars has been challenged since Disney took over. I've had some frustrations and disappointments there. But this game embodies everything that I love about Star Wars, and it is amazing. And I love playing this game. I want to go play it right now. It's so good. And once you've played a couple times, it has a longer playing time. It says 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Logan and I knocked this out in 2 hours easily. Once you play it with someone who's played more than once or twice, you can knock this game out pretty quick. And the expansion for it is a must play. It changes the battles a little bit for the better. Dice chucking in battles, but also playing cards that benefit you. And it's just awesome. It's a heavy game, but it's incredible. I love it.
So do you think we're going to see a Star Wars Rebellion and/or expansion where the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, is hunting down spies? Like,
I don't know.
I would love to see that.
I haven't actually watched Andor yet, so
it's fantastic.
I saw the
4 or
first
5 episodes in, and it's one of the best Star Wars shows, period.
It's the best
that I've seen,
Star Wars show, period, for me.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I played Rebellion once. It fell a little flat for me when I played it. Only one play, obviously, but I think the play time is what kind of keeps me away from it. I don't have somebody in my home that I think I could play this regularly with. If I did, then I probably would play it more. But yeah, it was a fun play when I played through it, but didn't quite grab me as much as it did for you, Tyler.
That's my number 2, Star Wars Rebellion.
All right. We're to the number 1 games of all time. So if you've been paying attention, you know the game that I haven't mentioned, that is a game that we've talked up a ton, and that is Anachrony. This is my number 1 game of all time. It's designed by David Turczi, Richard Amon, Victor Peter. Mind Clash Games. We've talked about Mind Clash Games. They have amazing production. Their games are just awesome. Every Mind Clash game that I've played, I've really enjoyed, including the most recent Astra. That game was awesome as well. For the reasons Tyler mentioned, that's why I love this game. I love the time travel mechanic, which is essentially just taking a loan, but it's a cooler loan, right? It's awesome. And you have to go pay back that loan by building a lab. The worker placement is incredible. I love the completely unnecessary, but awesome mechs where you are actually sliding your workers into the mechs and putting them out on the board. I love that the workers that you're placing are unique and they get benefits for going to certain places.
Based on their career profession.
Yeah, exactly. Your engineers, your, is it scientists? I'm forgetting the other ones, but they're all unique. Yeah, and you can only go to certain places with certain,
that's one of my favorite parts about it too.
It's just awesome. I love it. I love how when you take back your workers, some of them go to sleep. Some of them come back awake, depending on where you go. I love that you have to wake up your workers. And you can do it the mean way and just wake them up, or you can, it's an action that you can wake them up.
And if you have the app.
Oh, the app is incredible. Oh, yeah. Well, I talk about unnecessary, but adds to the game, right?
I love that whether or not they go to sleep or stay awake when you bring them back is dependent on how proficient they are at the slot that you place them in.
Yeah, right.
Based on their profession, right? That's just cool.
It is cool. I love all of the different modules. So I took a chance on this one and backed the Infinity Box, which has everything in it. There's a ton of different modules. There's still content that I haven't explored yet, but I love how you can mix and match. You can put what you want into the game. Some of the modules are bigger and more complex. Some of them are just small. It just adds tiles, which I'll probably never not play without those, right? But they add a different flavor to the game, and it's a little bit different every time you play. It's just amazing. There's so much to say about this one. Well deserving my number 1 spot.
I've owned this game since it came out. My wife actually bought this game. She did the research. She bought it for me for her birthday and gave it to me. Like, didn't ask me about it or anything. And I was floored that she picked this out for me. And I hadn't really at the time heard of it or really known much about it. She bought me the version that didn't have the mechs in it. And for years, I played without the mech suits.
Which is completely fine.
And it works. And it was fantastic. And I loved it. And for a while there, I was like, I don't even need them.
I like that their heads are poking out of the top of the suit.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
That's so cool.
It makes it feel like it's actually in that mech suit. But I did purchase the mech suits later. For the exosuits. And it's great. It's a great production. It's a great game. It's also my number 1. It's on my list. And for all the exact same reasons, I love this game. I think that it is exactly what you were saying, Kevin. There's so much to explore here, and there's so much that we haven't explored, and we've played this a lot. I've owned this and played it a lot with a lot of different groups. It's accessible. It's a little long for some players who may not want to play as long of games, but it's not a terribly long game either. And so there's a lot of opportunity in there. All the same reasons. I love this game. It is certainly my number 1 game.
We've got to get Fractures of Time played.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I still remember I built my game table, right? And that was the first game that I
That was
opened
mine as well.
on my new game table.
It was mine as well, I think.
I mean, it covered everything. I mean, it took forever to put together, like any good Mind Clash game does, but such a beautiful game, beautiful production, top notch. David Turchi knocked it out of the park. This game is just awesome. I want to go play this right now.
Yeah.
And I've had games. There was one game, I don't know if it was Mark and I that played at your house with you, and you destroyed us, and I wanted to play it again right away. And any game that does that, where you can lose badly and still have a good time playing and want to get it right back to the table, is an amazing game.
Well, it's one of those games where after you're done, you think about it and you're like, okay, I could have done this better, or this is a strategy I could go towards next time. And I love games like that, where you're just thinking about it and thinking about the play and saying, oh, I can maximize this in a different way. Like you said, even if you lose horribly, it wasn't a terrible experience, and you just want to go do it again to do better, to explore a different strategy.
Well, it's because, like, even in that game where we were playing, Tyler, that you just mentioned, there was a lot to do and a lot to explore and things that hadn't been tried before necessarily. And so seeing how those work and just getting stuff to work right sometimes, it's like, oh, I see how Tyson or Kevin or Tyler figured out this for this specific expansion or this specific variant. It makes you want to try that experience again. So yeah, that's mine and Kevin's number one
game of all time,
Anachrony.
All right, so my number one is Kevin's number 9. We already talked about it this episode. It is Clans of Caledonia. That's right. 19th century Scotland is my favorite game theme.
Wait. Why not?
Yeah,
That's your favorite game theme?
No, but it's my favorite game.
It's got whiskey in it. I mean, yeah.
It's an economic area control. We talked about it. The market's amazing. I love all the available actions that you have each turn. I love that the suspense. I love the suspense that is created from round to round as the game progresses, and just trying to eke out an action here, an action there with one extra coin, or, you know, if I can just find a way to do this and set myself up for next round. And I love the memories that we have of when Kevin got this, and I think my family was out of town at the time, and it was Kevin, Mark, and I sitting around the table night after night after night. And we got to the point where we started playing 2 games in one night, and just such
It was fun.
an amazing experience. It was over the summer. I remember that. And it was just one of those amazing gaming moments that I'll never forget. And, this game's on Board Game Arena. Played it a ton there. I think I've got 2 games going on right now. It's just such a good game. I need some expansion content. Juma has had a forum about his upcoming expansion on BGG for years. But I guess more recently he's talked about this coming down the pipe potentially next year.
Yeah, Karma Games, I joined their Discord, and they posted yesterday that said in 2023, and they should be releasing a new expansion. So, I mean, fingers crossed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like you said, we'll believe it when we see it.
Yeah.
But, it's pretty good news coming out of Karma Games. So,
yeah, so I'm excited for that. If that happens, I'll be on top of the world. I love this game. Hopefully it comes with a little bit bigger box to store some more content.
Oh my gosh.
Because this is minimalized.
Yeah, it is too small.
It is.
There's no getting around it.
Yeah. I love the art though. And
but it could be blown up almost twice as big.
It could. It's an incredible game. It's my number 1, Clans of Caledonia. I love it.
Great game.
So that's our top 10 of all time.
We made it.
It's amazing to me looking at these lists and seeing of all of our 1 through 30 and seeing how many of the games on here are games from this year. Like new to me games, stuff.
Yeah,
stuff
I had a few at least.
Right?
Interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting to see. So I'll be curious to see how this list changes over the next year. But there's so many good games coming out every year that like there's so much that can be added to these lists that make them shift all the time. And like we've even said it about Scythe and Dead Reckoning and things like that, that there's just no shortage of great games out there.
Is there any surprises that like really shocked you guys about these lists?
Well, I mean, I think you talked about it.
I've mentioned a few.
You've mentioned a few, and I think those were just errors, right? So like Rajas of the Ganges not being in your top 30,
right,
which it probably would have been.
It probably would have been.
Maybe somewhere. I was surprised to see that, but I wonder what would have fallen off. Probably your number 30, I guess, right?
Yeah, Carcassonne, which...
Carcassonne, maybe, yeah.
Shadows might not have made it. I might have added Coloma there.
Looking at the lists, the meteoric rise of Wonderland's War and Batoku for Tyson. That surprised me a little bit that those were on there. But
or Darwin's Journey that he hasn't even gotten yet.
Right.
Yeah, but I've played that one a fair amount, and you guys haven't even had a chance to see that one. So
yeah,
there were a few that absolutely, there are things on my list that I will fully admit that could be
off.
Yeah, they could fall off, and that my excitement for them is part of the hype, right? Like they're exciting to me now, and so I really like them, and I
see
want
if they have staying power.
But if they have staying power, that's the difference.
I mean, I think they very well could. I mean, Batoku, Wonderland's War, they're good games that we've enjoyed, and I think they're good designs. So.
But Toku
we'll see. Time will tell, right?
There for being on my list too.
Yeah, even after one play. Right?
Yep.
The problem I have, or I guess the surprise for me, was seeing that all these games that are on here that don't get played all that much. Like these are great games, but we're still like I'm not playing. These are not the only 30 games that I'm playing. I'm playing a lot of games. And these ones don't see as much time as maybe I'd like them to on the table. And that's the one thing that I think I took away is like, these are great games. Why am I not just playing these?
It's so funny. Like we talked about that. It's like we talk about these games and then we're like, holy cow, I want to play these games. Yeah. Right. You know, it happened over and over again in this top 30.
Yeah, definitely. We all need to become independently wealthy so we can have some more free time and not have to go to work every day.
Or one of us can become independently wealthy and then hire the other two of us to play board games with them.
Oh, okay.
It only takes one. All right, cool.
Well, that kind of removes the friend element if you're paying them to play with you, though.
But we've already established the friendship.
Somebody becomes independently wealthy and just gives their friends money, I guess is what you should do.
Yeah, go win the lottery.
Lottery. That's what needs to happen. Yeah. Exactly.
This has kind of been a beast to do these top 30 episodes from a recording and editing perspective. Maybe we'll revisit this in a year or two, but it's definitely interesting and it's been fun to come up with these lists and talk about these amazing games. So
it's cool to see how lists change over the years, right? Mm-hmm. So 2 years from now, we do this again and what falls off, what like Cult of the New all of a sudden shows up and Tyson has 10 brand new games in his top 30, you know?
And 5 of them we've never heard of.
That's fine. But that's, hopefully you'll start playing them now, seeing how highly rated they are.
Yeah. No, it's fun. It's been awesome.
We hope you enjoyed listening to our all-time top 30.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you want more Longest Turn in your life, please check us out on Instagram. Also, be sure to check us out on Board Game Geek, where you can join our guild, Guild 3947, and check out our blog, where we post all our show notes and occasionally post more detailed reviews. If that's not enough for you, we have a Discord server. If you want to play a game with us on Board Game Arena, join our Board Game Arena group, The Longest Turn. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Tot ziens.
Goodbye.
See you
later. Welcome. Nope.
Hello, this is Kevin. Sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know what that pause was for. Okay.
Well, I can edit that out. So
well, I know, but
you just got to go with it.
But usually,
join the Discord and immediately start Did I say discard?
The discard.
That'll come into play later. Plus, I haven't interrupted Tyson yet.
How you going to start? He literally, his mouth is open.
Arms, out wide.
Arms ready because this is your ready pose.
It's more of there's a microphone in front of you. Let me get body language in here so you know I'm about to start.
Oh, it's a cue.
It's a cue.
Oh. Now we know.
Well, sometimes I use it as a cue to interrupt him.
So that's why Darwin's journey. So that's why Jory is how it sounded really drunk. So that's why I cannot even do it now.
Look what you did, Kevin.
I didn't do anything. You're gonna be disappointed that there's no flank steak in the game. That's what it's gonna come down to. That's what
I had another mate joke, but I'll abide. And Memoir 41, Memoir 44 is one of them. So it has gone.
Memoir 41, is that like an expansion or something?
It's the start of the war.
Pre-war stuff.
Yeah. All right. So that's your number 5.
How about I wrap up my own game? That is my number 5.
I'm going to do Tyson's transition. Speaking of war game.
That is my number 5, Memoir 44. The scenario, Tyler, I don't know what you're doing. Sorry, your eye hurts?
Yeah,
okay.
No, I'm fine.
I thought you were laughing at me. But,
No.
Okay.
Listening.
Do you have
I was concentrating on what you were saying.
Do you have another flanking comment?
I was saying if I had.
Stop it with your flanking comments. So anyway, I'm not going to look at you. There's a great BGA implementation. Yes, thank you, Tyler. Yet again, you're contributing just immensely to this discussion. I love how you're just making fun of my top 10 games of all time.
How have I made
Lost Ruins of Arnak. Oh, yeah, this game's terrible.
I had positive things to say about it. Did I not?
Yeah, flank steak. That's really good.
No,
I'm playing the flank steak card. I'm going to wipe out your whole unit.
Going back to Lost Ruins of Arnak, I was very positive about it.
Is that what you got from that discussion too, Tyson?
I was very optimistic that that's what was going to happen, and then it went the other way.
Yeah, and then it went.
I said
I'm
I was
forcing
still
myself to play this game because other people like it. I think it's terrible, but maybe one day something's going to click and I'm going to like this game. Like, what the?
I do have a meaningful comment.
I also have another comment.
I reject your comment. Tyson, continue.